anticlimactic. Like, you get to start with me instead of the awesome people who are going to be speaking for the rest of the program. But hello, everybody. Welcome to Haymarket House. My name's Dana. I work here. I help coordinate programming here at Haymarket House. And I want to welcome everyone to our event tonight, The Dead Don't Need Reminding book launch. We have a bunch of folks here with us in person. We also have some folks watching us on a live stream. So however you're joining us, welcome to this space. If you're not familiar with Haymarket House, we're a movement space. We're a community organizing space. We're also a literary and cultural space. So we welcome all those kinds of programs to our space. The biggest thing is, if you come to Haymarket House, it's part of being organized for a better world. So we actually see this space as kind of a collective project for people to come together in community to both share our art, but also fight for our own liberation. And I want to thank our co-sponsor, Semicolon Books, woo-woo, who we love partnering with for events. So stay tuned for more. Before beginning the program, I do want to make some acknowledgments. The first acknowledgement is that Haymarket House events take place on the occupied lands of the Council of the Three Fires tribes, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi, who are the indigenous keepers of this land, who through acts of genocide and dispossession have been forcibly removed to found Chicago and the state of Illinois. We recognize the nations that lived in and around this area, and we stand in solidarity with them in their ongoing struggles. I also want to acknowledge that settler colonialism is not relegated to history. It continues today, and we stand in solidarity with all the people in Gaza who are experiencing ongoing genocide and dispossession at the hands of the Israeli government, with the support and complicity of our own government. We also stand in solidarity with all the student organizers who, in the past few days, many of us have seen, have been victims of police violence and administrative repression simply for standing up for human rights. We are living in dark times, and coming together in spaces like this give us light and hope for a better world and help sustain us in our struggles. So now I want to introduce our speakers and our program. Obviously, our main speaker is Julian Randall. Yes, I was like, wow, what don't you do? Is a living queer Black poet from Chicago, a recipient of multiple fellowships, including a Pushcart Prize. He holds an MFA from University of Mississippi. His writing appears in the New York Times, Poetry, Marvel Comics, and The Atlantic. That is a range. Julian is the author of Refuse, winner of the Cave Canem Poetry Prize, and a finalist for the NAACP Image Award. Those are hard to get. I am impressed. The Pilar Ramirez Duet, The Chain Breakers, and, of course, the book we're here to celebrate tonight, The Dead Don't Need Reminding. And I want to read the subtitle, In Search of Fugitives, Mississippi, and Black TV Nerd Shit. It's an awesome subtitle. He can be found at Julian the Poet, at Julian the Poet, and on his website, juliandavidrandall.com. Woo! We are going to be emceed tonight, not by me, thank goodness, by Gabriel Ramirez, who is a queer Afro-Latinx writer. Sorry, pause. By Gabriel Ramirez. Sorry. I'm still getting used to the poets. I do not pause enough. I apologize. Is a queer Afro-Latinx writer, performer, and educator. Ramirez's work has appeared in Muzzle Magazine, the Adroit Journal, and many other places. Woo-woo! And we're going to be joined, we're going to have a couple of readings. One is by George Abraham. A Palestinian-American poet. They are the author of Birthright and the chapbooks, The Specimen's Apology and Al Yom. They are currently executive editor of the Whiting Award-winning journal Mizna. Their collaborations include co-editing a forthcoming Palestinian poetry anthology with Noor Hindi, which will be out with Haymarket Books in 2025. Woo! And a performance art project titled Eve with Fargo Tabaki. Thank you. All right. And we also are blessed with a reading by I.S. Jones, who is an American Nigerian poet and essayist. She has received support in the form of fellowships, retreats, and residencies from Hedgebrook, Brooklyn Poets, Sewanese Writers Conference, Callaloo, Breadloaf, and The Watering Hole. Woo! I know, such an accomplished group. For the last 3 years, she served as the director of the Watershed Reading Series with the Art and Literature Laboratory. Her chapbook, Spells of My Name, was selected by Newfound for their Emerging Poet series. Yes. I.S. Jones is a 2023 Breadloaf Rona Jaffe Scholar, and she is currently an instructor with Brooklyn Poets, a reader for Poetry Magazine, and is at work on her debut full-length collection of poems. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Gabriel.
Haymarket House, make some noise! Wow, 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 wow. We are here for the one and only. Right. Everybody who knows me is like, oh, it started. um, everyone, please, please, please just make some noise for Julian Randall again. And we are here to celebrate the incredible book, The Dead Don't Need Reminding. And before we even get started, I just need to send Julian a voice note in front of everyone and just say that I am so honored to be here. And I know that the work that I believed no one ever wants to read of mine belongs in this world because of you. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for making me feel more possible and a part of this imagination that crosses generations and universes just with some words, yo. I love you so much. Thank you for inviting me to do this. I'm a huge fan. I love you so much. Okay, send. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we have some amazing readers tonight. Uh, we're gonna just get on going, but before, I just needed to spend some time with the book, and there was this one line that said, "I say we, though even now, I don't think I believe that there was a we in the Shadow Lounge in 2015." And without context, I just want to use that line to also say we are a we in this motherfucking room tonight, right? We are a we when we walk out of here with this book, when we are sharing these essays, when we are just bearing witness and just not playing with the truth the way Julian does not play with the truth. You know what I'm saying? This book is a testimony to that. This book, like Julian, will also live forever. You know what I'm saying? So, with that said, let's get into some of these bios that are on that phone. It's like under this chair. And, you know what I'm saying? Uh, First, we are going to hear from the illustrious George Abraham. But before we invite them to the stage, uh, Julian has some words for George as well as I.S. Jones. George Abraham's brilliance, like the sun, is only exceeded by their warmth and generosity. They are a Palestinian. Oh wow, Palestinian. Palestinian. Thank y'all. Thank you for your patience. That's what an hour and a half of sleep looks like. You know what I'm saying? They're a Palestinian luminary and proof that language is not merely an organism, but a tool for liberation. One can ask for no better sibling, no fiercer advocate, no more expansive landscape of mind and heart than George Abraham. Julian Randall would not be alive without them. Everyone, please make some noise for George Abraham.
Making us cry for 2 seconds before reading. I'm just like, get ready. No. Lord, Lord have mercy. I love you, Julian. It's an interesting time. I don't do events that are celebration oriented nowadays, except for very truly exceptional circumstances. Julian is a truly exceptional circumstance. Um, and just want to center us in thinking about Gaza, Rafah, right now, especially. And it's funny because Gaza is in the room with us in a way. Back in 2019, 18, Musa'ab Abu Toha, probably a known poet friend of the room, was collecting book donations for the Edward Said library that he founded in Gaza. And I got the chance to like send a very slim, like literally the dimensions of the package where like so many books are being sent. You can only choose like one, maybe two very slim books to send to Gaza right. And the two books that I chose, I sent the last living copy of my chapbook El Yom, and I sent Julian's book Refuse off together as siblings into the Edward Said Library in Gaza. And it's just, I mean, which doesn't exist anymore for obvious reasons, for the genocide. And it's just interesting the idea of someone in Gaza might have had access to Julian's work too. And just sitting in that for a minute. I'm going to read a book from Birthright that wouldn't have been written without Julian. In many ways owes, the end note kind of clarifies of it being like this poem owes itself to poetry. So even though we're celebrating the nonfiction, we're gonna sit here and pettily reinsert the Julian poetry into the room. I feel like the good nonfiction people are poets too, anyways. But mythos of birthright ending in a return to Olympus. Epigraph. Maybe then a return, maybe wingspan elsewhere. I am not a proud beast. Zaina El-Sus. I was born a reckoning of the historic, post-human, pre-image. Imagine me this way. Before a jealous god siphoned me into mortal, I caught light in my bare hand, became it. Tell me heaven is a hilltop to be inherited, and I'll say my father crafted me from liquid thunder, so nothing could strip away that God in me. Yes, I once considered return unfathomable, and yes, though it came at the expense of bodies, including my own, I returned anyways. Once, a half-soldier made a labyrinth of my country, and I did not choke him with golden twine, but with heel, pressed to throat because it was the softest part of me. Once, I was beheaded, and 3 heads grew back in my place, slice and another one watched me transcend my oppressor's recursion. Once, the sun tried to swallow me whole, and I grew wings to say, see me, eye to eye. Once I was unwinged and came back, rebodied in a flurry of blossoms. It is prophecy. You cannot kill us when we exist this loudly. What you call water, I call ancestor. Drown me in that river, I'll emerge with golden skin. Suffocate me in my dead, I'll be anything but sin. And when I returned, in spite of everyone fallen before me, split heel, head of snakes untethered, my people looked upon me open-armed like I was nothing less than a miracle, knowing it was the prettiest lie. I am, therefore I parallel. I am, therefore, a multitude. So let me be brief. Let me be light. What you call raising hell, I call reclamation's song. Listen, I have lived so many lives in this body, and there's no greater gift than the sound your stolen land makes as you ascend back through its fields. Press your palm to its earth in fracture, and crown yourself in its name. Thank you. So I'm gonna get bad vibes and then good vibes. I've been like thinking about hijacking a lot lately. Literally, I've been reading the memoir of Layla Khalid, a revolutionary Palestinian. It's called Our People Shall Live. It's beautiful. It's online for free. So I mean, in a literal sense, I've been thinking about the role of hijacking in Palestinian resistance. I've also been thinking about the role of the poet in a genocide, teehee, and the whole resisting by any means necessary. Thinking about what it means to throw our poems into the death machine itself, the death machine of academia, the death machine of capitalism, the death machine of everything, empire, etc., etc. And I've been thinking about how Julian is one of the friends of mine who inspires such great pettiness. Like, I think Julian's pettiness is so generative in a way. I think, you know what I mean? We were literally just talking about this at dinner. Like, Julian's pettiness wants me to do a craft lesson in pettiness. It inspires me to literally craft my pettiness at a sharper level. And so with that spirit, I'm going to bring my pettiness in with the form of a hijacking poem. These poems I've been writing have been taking poems that I think are either nonsense or poems that I think are written by people who abuse their power in gross ways and have been rewriting them to Palestinianize them. The first one I wrote was, for example, Maggie Smith's Good Bones became Good Countries, for example. Anyone in the New Yorker, like, y'all are going to get hijacked, just as a FYI. There's some coming out in the Kenyan Review soon. So wait. And this is hijacking someone who's been on this stage before, who I think is a very gross and dangerous person. And this poem is called Talking with My Professor About Divestment and Sanctions after hijacking Sharif Shanahan. Sometimes the body is theirs, sometimes yours, but always the body is Palestinian. When he asks of shame in the body, he does not specify. He is American and tends to miss the nuance, the apparent contradiction of representation not being repair, or Palestinians demanding, how could they, more of this, and every room into which our foot is jammed. Shame is not my body, being Arab and American born, but the compression of. When he says yours, he thinks he's doing me a favor. And so that's for the people who think they're with us. Good vibes now. This is a poem I wrote just after October 7th. A lot of Palestinians were coming together thinking about, oh my goodness, what is going to come? What is going to come? We know something really awful is going to come. And I was in a group chat of people being like, can we just like teleport away from ourselves and like be in a potluck together or something? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, please. And I knew that I couldn't literally do that, so I just wrote a silly little poem that imagines that. So thank you all for being here. On the eve of yet another Nakba, a dream. Abandoning this shithole called American life and teleporting to the largest Palestinian potluck imaginable. No shelling, no blockades or walls, no post 9/11 era terrors of surveillance, no wildfire lies to feed the American public, no America to need feeding. Everyone will eat here and have their fill. The Tetas will find more pans as in the distance the flipping of pot after pot of makluba takes 4, no, 6 hands to pull off. This small collectivism of rice, its rise and steam and laugh against a world turned already upside down. We'll abandon the doom scroll and feed instead the infinity of us as our beloveds return and return only to be put to this work of miraculous care. Yes, even in dreaming, this world requires the work of every hand. And what better way to say I love you than to pluck the mint or rinse the rice? Yalla, we have bellies to feed. There's Fargo in Russia, waiting gateless for my arrival, while Noor in summer and all our Noors and summers and all our Sarahs and Sarahs are here, already hard at work and gossiping over fingers stained with Cheeto dust and Lebna, while Randa and Hala smoke argila on an endless porch with all our aunties, while Naomi reads to a crowd of children living, yes, so alive in their wide-eyed listening, while in the kitchen tetas are peering over shoulders, passing on the muscle memory of that which was once country. Oh, to be freed from such names and boundings. And as the house fills and fills, did I mention we were housed? The song fills the air as we pull off the miracle of the largest Philistini potluck imaginable. Oh, how the imagination grows after cousins known, after cousins unknown, after even our dead begin to come back for us, after the magic of seeing the beloveds we've only known from Insta stories or poems about resisting, after we confront the whole of us we have yet to even imagine, we enlarge in the table, make room for our cousins from Lebanon, our Iraqi and Armenian cousins without need for the words like genocide, our Yemeni cousins who no longer need to lay their lives on the line, our black cousins who taught us to burn precincts, break prisons in and beyond our minds, our Vietnamese cousins who know occupation like muscle memory, those who in their coalitions made living room for our infinite, all the people who loved us without explanation, our anti-Zionist Jewish cousins who with their bodies stood with us, our indigenous cousins who fought alongside us despite the terrors that led us into their lands, every Ferganizer from Ferguson to Minneapolis, from South Africa to Sudan who said we remember the Palestinians today, and every day through our every Nakba, every poet exiled and dispossessed from that which we called living, welcome to the largest potluck imaginable. Look what we built from the rubble of their imagination. They who could not fathom this weight of us, we abandoned their failed future, failed progress, failed names for human. We who know the cost of leaving time in our bodies, who know there is no elsewhere but today. We, naive enough to write poems imagining the impossible. We who love ourselves enough for such tenderness, however brief. We know the work is coming and here. Already, we know the conditional tense of every dream will have an end, but need it have a border? How silly of me to dream a utopia disentangled from borders. We need better names than heaven. I left the world I knew for a poem I could not leave. This too is the logic of border. I'm trying to have faith enough in unknowing, to trust the becoming of us unbounded, unboundable. Say the necessary severance was not a question of wall or flaming sword, but reflected back to the body. Oh, you who cannot bear this whole of us. Oh, you who cannot love us completely. Oh, you who cannot love even your own selves. We know your gaze, your bitter witness. We die it every day. We tunnel into elsewheres beyond your wildest dreams. To you, I say another world is possible, for it is here already. Abandon yourself. Abandon every Eden tended at our own expense. The table is set. The fruit beyond knowing is ripe and begging to be plucked. We are already mid-fall and reaching for life, and every act of choosing life, and every act and reaching And the return is here, and here, and here, and already, and
Please keep making noise for George Abraham, y'all. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you, George. Was the line "We need a better name than heaven"? We need better names than heaven. Thank you. Wow, wow, wow. Mm. Um, work. I'm hoping just together right now. Thinking about the title of the book, thinking about where we are in all of our lives in this world together. Um, if we could call in some names of loved ones, ancestors, people we miss, people who should be in this room with us, um, and we'll just hold space for people who want to say some names, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Um, with that, um, Etiola Jones. Oh, I clearly wasn't on the mic. Etiola Jones. Okay. All right. Like the moon, shines both in phases and with undeniable light. A ride or die friend and the founding editor of 5-2 Fine 2 magazine. Their sibling love has saved many lives, including the authors. There are no synonyms for the kind of sister she has been. Julian Randall would not be alive without them. Everyone, please make some noise for I.S. Itiola Jones.
I was wondering when the 5-2 fine 2 would ever come. You know, it was a long time coming. Good evening, everyone. Where does one begin? I'm gonna read some poems from this fourth. Oh, I needed my own spiel. Yes. So it was 2016. I was still living in Brooklyn. Oh, my bad, my bad. I'm doing this. And now for my next track. Sorry, I'm a serious adult. I swear. Anyway, it was 2016. I was still living in Brooklyn, and I was starting to write this book about Cain and Abel being reimagined as sisters. And at the time, there's a lot of state sanctioned black violence going around. And that seemed to be the urgency that was driving a lot of the poems that our peers were writing. So I had said to Julian, no one wants to read these weird ass poems. I'm going to trash it. Then Julian calls me and gives me, frankly, a 45-minute call that, um, 45 minutes is actually very short for a call for Julian, actually. TBH. Yeah. If you know, you know. um, it is a rare thing in this life to be loved by someone who so fiercely needs you to win as much as they want to win, right? Um, it is a rare thing to be loved by someone who sees you so clearly and so specifically, right? Sees you as you see yourself and how you also hope to be reflected back to the world. Um, I did not know friendship really until I met Julian. I did not know that I could be loved so exactly until I met Julian. Um, I am here and I am the person that I am today because of Julian's love that he's poured into me over our almost 10-year friendship. I am not wearing waterproof mascara. You know what, Julian? Anyway, um, I love you so much, Julian. It is the honor of my life to celebrate your good and living name. All right, so this first poem is one of Julian's favorites from the book that I'm dedicating to you tonight. It begins with an epigraph. And when I go towards you, it is with my whole life. Raina Maria Rilke, epithalamion in the field. As a deer longs for streams of water, so my heart longs for you. How the red, wet animal in my chest throbs your name. I gather a garland of the day's eye, sew a crown of branch and nettle, bleach clean the antlers of a fallow. Before ceremony, the church pews sing a language of hunger. Every beast I've slain has come to bear witness. Fill each seat with their mangled bodies. I'm so close to madness, Father. Stretch my hands. Guide me towards your light. You who knows and whose vast knowing undoes me. The rush of my blood is you. The faithful pacing of my lungs is you. Forfeit my eyes and lace, and I'll still feel you. Come find me, Baba, in the church of wheat and sunlight. Before you I am disciple, bride, guardian of your perfect name. My body is merely a tool of execution. Take me as yours and I will follow you. Oh, how possible I feel in your light. This is the first poem that opens the book. After the offering ritual, Cain carries Abel home. Violence is a failure of communication. The shoulder severed from the dream of the socket. Most pain is useless, but it's the body's oldest song. I want my own suffering to be intimate. I do what I can to ease Abel's wailing. The goat's final gesture to dethrone her from the stone altar, to stir its might against its master. The beast saw the light, but not the blade. Abel saw the resistance, but not the panic. I had never seen so much blood moan from an animal's throat. To unburden the beast of its crimson gown, which dresses now my sister's sutana. Heaven's blue flame laps the goat up. Despite our best labor, eventually Baba comes to collect. It's either the animals or us. The best of the harvest or the soil will consume our true names. We have blood and dirt. Together they make God. And what does mercy look like between humans? A sister reaching to lift a sister from the ground. When I say a love that will end us, I mean mercy. Remember, I offered you my hand once. Push me away if you like. Oh, yeah, I got some more in me. Get a poem from the manuscript that you like quite a bit. E. David. David. I loved you when I was a child, and so my love for you was childish. For 9 lifetimes you touched me in dreams. 9 lifetimes of haunting me in the tender hours that hang low enough to touch, which doesn't ease me back to sleep. You marked in memory, lips overwrought of sweetness, mouth like a too-worn kicked-in fence, green eyes pursuing me through the years. So quiet your lashes against my breast, I could mistake you for faith. Zora said it's useless to justify desire, and so dawn betrays me to sunlight. I say I have no use for nostalgia, and still you return. Not as the man you are now, but as the boy I loved at 16, at 17. Knowing nothing of love, even then I understood devotion, but not who was worthy of it. All my life, so much of the grace I gave at the cost of grace for myself. We could have wasted the hours in a heady field of spring, called it a marriage. Maybe all childish love is the fleeting light I will never touch again. In the dark, I bite you with my softest teeth. This poem is about masturbation and voyeurism. Everyone's like, what? What in the Sam? What in the Sam Hill? Anyway, we are soft between hours. There's a sweetness to these nights of surrender. It's true. The heart beats two rhythms, one for me, then you. I emerge from the shower, drip on mama's good floor, trail a gallon of water towards your door. Down the hall you sleep in your skin, I saunter in mine. I tried before to rest, but my jaw aches from grinding teeth, so I kneel at your altar. I watch you touch yourself through a blade of light leaking into the hallway. Earlier we went to the river if only to relieve the body of the sun's tirade. I didn't mean to see it first. You slip out of your blue bathing suit, step into the water. Blue promise memorizing the muscles of your back. I'm old enough to understand too much longing can make any creature feral. My problem is that I fall in love with beauty. You are the grape going into my mouth, the lone tear of river water tracing my breast. I've spent my small life as two bodies yearning to be one. I want to know how it felt the first time you discovered God's eye blooming between your legs, a flowering of dark red poppies in a field. What pleasure possesses you, sister, I want for myself. In this night, everything is about the moon, even her absence, even you. Eventually, someone wants something. That's the nature of power. O patient light, grant me passage. I want no beast but the night to hear me. Your soft, indelible labor, fingers roving the field until you shudder into a gilded song. I long to kiss the hand of this submission. I dream we crash into each other, Cain Abel, Cain Abel, Cain Abel. That even when you catch me and close the door, I fever for the taste of you. I said I have a problem. I didn't say I wanted to be saved. I got like 2 poems in me, and then we're gonna hear from the dead don't need reminding. Hey. Ow! Between grace and mercy. We learned mercy so young. A beetle with its hind legs crushed. A dog impaled by a rusty fence. A rabbit thinking it was clever enough to reach the other side of the road. A veil of light drapes each moment red, tangerine, azure, lavender, each waiting to reimagine the sky. The beetle, frantic to undo what sudden brute force divided its legs, still moving towards a song. With the beetle, it was simple. Cain crushed the small creature with the heel of her foot, splayed it open like a wish. People think suffering is meant to be purposeful. Otherwise, why name it? Maybe I'm nostalgic for what wounds best. The rabbit and tire and asphalt. Asphalt gown in viscera makes a new animal. A dog leaps too low and yelps all evening for Baba into the orange-pink sky. All day blood weeps into the rust. Rust twisted deep into the animal. I take the dog's face in my hands. Touch is the body's first language. Blood is the body's first covenant. Kill it, says a sister. You kill animals all the time. I kiss the dog's eyes closed. So much of this manuscript, as I've been talking with Julian about it over the years, has helped me realize a lot of this book is about healing a child wound. And that's what this last poem is about. I think sometimes, I don't know if y'all remember how you like made up things as kids to make sense of the adult world, right? That's essentially what this poem is doing. Cain in the peopleless kingdom. Can one be opulently tired? If so, I am here. Dress pockets spilling of acorns, allegro and half shadows, praying mantis scaling the length of my forearm, scraped knees, the signs of a good childhood well spent. A ladybug lands on rotting fruit that when I split between my hands, an encore of maggots spill out. All things in the lush world have their place, and he feels a church once you understand surrender. I wear my sister's blouse with my mother's skirt. I am 10, and if I am faithful to patience, the fields beyond my tending open their secrets. Show me a creature more resilient than faith. Wildflowers. Every winter they retreat, forming beneath the earth, a whisper of revenge, and every spring they resurrect. I make bouquets and speak to my subjects. I dreamed you once. Did you feel it? Daisies in their proclamation, yes. I am your dream made root and flesh. Red clover, white clover, red clover, white clover. Make me in your image. Purple cornflower, lady's glove, meadow sweet. Because I think I'm so clever, I'll tell you something. I think some of us were born to give more love than what we will know in return. And that is killing some of us. Like what Adam does to my mother, dragging her by her throat into the bedroom.
Make some more noise for I.S. Jones, y'all. Everybody make some more noise for I.S. Jones as they return to the stage. While that's happening and we're figuring all that out really quick, I just want to say, uh, can we just make some noise for your readers that you heard from tonight? Yeah. Um, and really quickly, when I think of Julian, I think of Julian's generosity, right? I also think of Julian's vision, the way Julian's able to see the people that Julian loves and helps us see ourselves better and truer for what we are capable of, for what we are able to do in this world, and how much more like Julian convinces me that I'm even more deserving of the love I already received. Right. And I'm just like, oh, that's possible. And he's like, yeah, motherfucker, do it. Like, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think of how Julian one time was like, send me your poems. I need to see something is true. And I'm like, okay. And Julian was like, yeah, that's right. And I was like, what? I was like, that's hella Virgo of you, bro. Like, and I was like, and I think it wasn't for months until we were in person. I was like, what was it? What was it? And Julian was like, you love your people so much that you write them into all of your work. And they are always with you. And it you know, it speaks to who you are. And I think what speaks to me about who Julian is a James Baldwin line from A Letter to My Nephew that opens the fire next time. And it's, if it had not been for love, none of us would have survived. Right? So I think about how Julian carries the living and the dead and the future all within themselves. And is like, because I'm here, y'all are here too. Every room I enter, y'all are here too. Right? So with that, one more time again, make some noise for I.S. Jones.
Julian, in his efforts to lovingly make all his friends cry in public, I won't soon forget this transgression, but wrote a really gorgeous introduction. You were not unscathed, 2G. Anyway, Gabriel Ramirez, like the Earth, is a planet disguised as a question of kin. Wherever they have stepped, they have made family. Every room they walk into unfolds into a laugh that never fully ends. Like the earth beneath our feet, and the earth both inches and miles from all of us, Gabriel is ever growing, ever loving, and Julian Randall would not be alive without them.
Everyone, please make some noise for Julian Randall! Did you just throw your hat on the... It's a nice hat. You better get that up. Cool. What happened? This was not coordinated. That's the thing. Yeah. Oh no, this was not coordinated at all. Not even across me and ET. I packed this jacket. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna wear, but it's finna be red and white. I'm surrounded by red niggas who love flowers. You know what I'm saying? We really, really, really fuck with the flowers. And we really fuck with that book too. You dig? Well, hopefully you will after this still too. All right, cool. So grateful to see all of you. Thank you. And all of y'all who I can't see. I'm also grateful for it. Okay, cool. So we're gonna read some pieces. I decided that I wanted to do this launch as kind of a reading because one thing nobody tell you about putting out a prose book is that you just read 3 motherfucking pages everywhere you go. Which is wild because you write thousands of words and you get to read 7 of them. So I'm gonna start it off. This is an essay about T-Pain. Return of the Electric Sad Boy. All the kids at the bat mitzvah love the bartender. And if you, like me, were 13 in the year of our auto-tune 2007, you were sure of 2 things and only 2 things. 1, I am always sorry and I never know for what. And 2, damn, T-Pain is truly a legend. If you, like me, are someone who has never been especially confident about the fact that you have a body, that maybe you sat at the edge of a ring of children your own age at a bat mitzvah, maybe you were the only one who was expected to dance, maybe when the DJ called Snowball, you danced with the girl at the center of the whole party and the girl was taller than you, and maybe a few years or ancestors ago it would have been illegal for you to touch her. But you were invited. In full view of her parents at the country club, against the dark, polished oak of the walls, where already you are learning that adolescence is really just knowing where you are not supposed to be. You placed your hands on the sides of her taller hips as T-Pain crooned, I like the bartender. And the girl smiled, and it sounded amid all those eyes like someone had dropped a knife directly on its point and sampled only the best of melody. She guided my hands, which were still not touching her, but just kind of orbiting near where she wasn't. Her eyes almost pitying, as if to say, it's okay. I promise, nothing sharp exists here, and I believed it. Because it was the year of the body, year where my voice became my voice, where I lost the high notes that were the only 2 reasons 2 women would ever fight over me. But my hands, they stayed fists through the whole dance. And maybe this is something you can remember if you've ever been beckoned to a song you couldn't make good on. How the nails burrow small horizons into the palm. The pink bleach the pink briefly from the flesh until something is always setting in your hand. Maybe this is where we both enter. At this tenderness, I was sure must draw blood. All right, so the second thing that you learn when you put out a prose book, right, is that these motherfuckers are very hard to hold while you're trying to find your spot. This is an essay about Jordan Peele that is also not an essay about Jordan Peele. Black dude dies first. Dusk in Mississippi, and the wind bends the branches above my head into a tragicomic moan. The sun pulls low along Jackson Ave as I walk home from another mist bust, and sometimes in Oxford I blink and the twilight goes with it. The sun's warmth gone as if it were never there. I guess we are all lonely in the season that widows everything. The trees drowning in the kudzu, which strangles the branches without ever making a sound. Night is fragile in Oxford. The dewy quiet of the road home has few streetlights to its name, and none of the dark here is metaphor. None of the quiet is peace. The quiet is
However, occasionally torn by the engine of a massive pickup truck. You know the type. Huge Mad Max wheels and a Yeti Cooler's bumper sticker, that midlife crisis apocalypse mobile that gets polished to a suburban clean. That truck you fill to the brim with boys who could be killers or senators with the same hands. Every once in a while, one of these trucks whips past and I hear their laughter, hungry, overlapping before I hear the engine roar forward, and I don't know much about horror movies. But I know plenty about terror. And the moon is reflected in the hood of the truck, in the instant between me whipping off my headphones and the yelp of the truck that is maybe a slur, maybe a joke, maybe a hottie-toddy, maybe a threat, maybe a laugh that dies in the air between us as the boys zip away, the wind free moving through their identical haircuts. Beneath the moon, I'm only a couple steps from home, only a couple months and miles from me leaving Mississippi, and 2 months later, 3 students I could have TA'd for shooting Emmett Till's memorial for sport. There's a graveyard that I always forget about on my way back home. The bared branches shiver and moan above me again, and I suppose the Jordan Peele interview I watched earlier that day did make a point. The difference between horror and comedy is the music. Y'all be kind. Y'all be kind. Y'all be kind. All right. This is from an essay called Water Valley. The central conflict, I guess, of this book is me trying to find my great-grandfather's records. My great-grandfather was a very light-skinned black man who passed for white for a living, and then one day he didn't. And so this is the story of me trying to find what happened. Trying to find if I'm on the right page. I am not. Okay, here we go. Water Valley. I call City Hall and get a message that they're out for lunch, so I make my way into a bar a little way down Railroad Museum and see a flag that I would have thought was for Texas, if not for the magnolia tree flaring out against a stark white background. And look, I'm not one to weep for flags. I'm still not. But I've wept over a life denied before, and whenever I have imagined my grandmother's first steps in Greenville, some of her last ever in Mississippi, it is always beneath a mythically large magnolia tree, and every heady blossom blooms from grenade to belle to bride, and it is the second slowest surrender in all of Mississippi. And the only Mississippi flag I'd ever known had a Confederate flag tucked in the eye of it, and it had flown since 1894 to stop some Confederate veterans doing what Confederate soldiers are for. Flown since the first time my grandmother would have been able to point a child's finger to all 13 stars and learn that they all hated her equally. I wanted a life for her beneath that magnolia tree. I wanted every generous star within reach, and the man seated beneath the flag knows I'm not from around here. He asks what I'm doing in Mississippi, and I tell him I came looking for a man swallowed in the drawl of June. When I asked the man next to me what the flag was of, he blinked and said, Mississippi, and didn't elaborate. And maybe that's because the flag was something of a limited edition. According to Mississippi Governor John M. Stone in 1894, the Magnolia flag only ran from 1861 to 1865, a period in which famously nothing of any import at all happened in the state of Mississippi. Stone hilariously only mentions the flag was commissioned at a state convention in 1861, secession, aka grand opening, and then decommissioned at a separate state convention in 1865, surrender to the Union Army, aka grand closing. But it is years before I learned this, years before the final state to hold the Confederate battle symbol comes the last time, because George Floyd was murdered and we trade Black Death for symbols all the time in America. The magnolia still blooms on flags across the state, some with trees and some without. And still, when I imagine my grandmother fleeing the only home she'd ever known, just for a moment, all the magnolia petals perfume the wind churn until, like her father, they are almost feathers, almost birds. I can't know if there was ever a tree. Only that grief makes me wonder a number of things I can now never ask. Among them, if me and my grandmother shared a favorite flower, their petals' aroma thickening the late Mississippi sky until you can barely smell the ash. I'm sorry. Okay, cool. This is for my Bears fans in the room. Also, anybody who's ever been bored in a seminar class. That one got more of a reaction. Across the years, I've learned how to be bored in a seminar class. I was taking a graduate seminar about being a grad student, and when things got too meta, I would just go on YouTube. The key to watching a video when you're bored in class, besides not having glasses on, Tyler, is to never watch anything that you're seeing for the first time. I have two videos that are my go-to when I want to check out, but not to be clearly out of rhythm with the class. The first is Devin Hester's 2007 Super Bowl opening kickoff touchdown. When I watch it, I'm not hearing the iconic Devin Hester, "You are ridiculous," or even the roar of the Bears fans as we took our first and only lead of the Super Bowl. I'm hearing the memory of my father hollering "nigga" at the top of his lungs for the very first time. In 8th grade, my dad and I lived in an apartment alone on the north side while my mom was trapped back in Omaha, Nebraska, hoping to sell a house we'd been pressured into buying, hoping it would sell. It was 2007. It did not sell. So, that meant many weekends with me curled in the back seat of the car I'd eventually drive to Water Valley, Mississippi. My father drove us back and forth to Omaha so I wouldn't be totally without my mom. My dad generally cut down on his nigga usage rate so I wouldn't have to fight the kind of white boys who would take me saying nigga as a kind of permission. He, of course, had the quick nigga under his breath from time to time, more of a grunt than a word. There was the disbelieving, "Nigga, you done split your tongue into 5 different lies" on the phone with his childhood friends, but generally, him saying nigga was a rarity if he knew I was listening, but on the night of the Super Bowl, it was just the two. And some miracles you can only admire with a small curse. Devin Hester simply had it the night in Miami when he stood stretching at the edge of the end zone, hoping against hope that something everyone who worked for the Colts had sworn wouldn't happen was going to happen anyway. Hester had a reputation for miracles. His one-man demolition job of the Arizona Cardinals, which produced the infamous Dennis Green rant, one of the funniest press conferences of all time. He was like a dancer, and everywhere he stepped, grown men fell to their knees and wept at the prodigious boy, fugitive from half the men on the field, gliding into the end zone as if nothing might ever touch him again. And the kick rises, and Hester's legs are churning even as the stitch of the ball spins, a single magnolia petal floating into his outstretched arm. And Hester has this magic trick that I think that he does that I don't think many people notice as anything. He chops his legs hard in the early going of a run, creating a hummingbird-like illusion that he's already built to full speed, but it's all a mirage. The minute his pursuers slow to launch for him, he is when he's really running. And now my father is pounding the arms of his chair as Hester explodes out into the open field, and the fugitive in both of us sees yardage and thinks free, thinks go, thinks home, shouts over and over, "Run, nigga, run like you stole something," until the thud of his fist is a percussion, the splintering wood his hi-hat, and Hester is our kin because that is all that nigga means in our mouths, and our mouths are the only ones that matter, and they're overstuffed with sound because an impossible thing is happening, and Hester has a whole choir, a whole chain of running, an endless train of teammates, and a retired Deion Sanders sprinting along the sidelines, and they're a song that swells across the whole country, and it takes 13 and a half seconds in total, and the video ends, and the harmony of it stretches for the rest of my life. Sorry. The dark smudges over the Oxford sky as 10 years later the video ends, and I realize someone in class has launched into a lengthy and kind of racist monologue about slave narratives. And the form of the slave narrative begins often with "I was born," and eventually escape from what one was born to. I suppose we are all attempting to outrun something. In this case, I was just trying to outrun the clock, because the thing about Mississippi is that I needed a car, but I needed groceries and rent so much more. Class ends on someone discussing their research on Iggy Azalea being used as the premise for an academic paper on what black people sound like. That's real. Meanwhile, I needed to be out exactly on time. Otherwise, I would miss the last bus off campus. And on this particular night, with the heat of the morning turning to ghost, I stepped outside to see the last bus of the night whipping around the corner, which, if I missed it, means a 2-mile uphill walk through the dark in a Mississippi I'd only been in for a month. And I did what I always do. I ran. I ran with the desperation of a nigga who isn't worried about how ridiculous you look running with a backpack stuffed with a laptop and 2 classes of grading, even though technically I only teach 1 class, but I'm trying to cover for someone because we're all we got, and the bus is too far. And my knees have ached for the last 3 generations, and that pain means that the only thing I hate more than motion is standing still. And I'm thinking of Devin Hester and feeling the hummingbird thrum of my busted tendons screeching against each other when 5 black boys I don't know from Adam see me running, and we live out an old joke, don't shit make black people run faster than seeing other black people running, and how they saw me in that near pitch darkness is a question I leave to the answer. We're all running with us now. As the boys sprint next to me, their ball shorts swirling at their knees like the flags of nations we may never deserve, and they must have been bawling for hours before we became kin in this moment where they saw me and turned, so the boy who was in the back of their procession is now the front, sprinting neck and neck with the engine, hollering of a boy at the back who needs to come on, and the bus driver who has left me 3 times already that semester, and he passes down the message down the length of our running, our uninterrupted chain, and each of them is pumping their arms, chanting to me some version of "Run, nigga, run, they'll wait, we got you, run, nigga," and so I do. I sprint through that tenderness, into their harmony, found myself cousin to boys I will never see again. I'm gonna do like 2 more excerpts. Are we good on time for that? Trill. Okay. It might end up being 3. We'll find out. Just quick show of hands. Who here is familiar with BoJack Horseman? Trill. This is from an essay called The BoJack Horseman Story. Exterior, Calvary Cemetery. I arrive at my grandmother's grave, and there are no fewer than 12 Confederate soldiers there. Yeah, you heard that shit correctly. Calvary Cemetery is a bit of a maze, a low-slung skyline of Irish crosses and roses plucking themselves in the faintest breeze, and my father looks up from a conversation we are having, because we are coordinating the elegies we're going to be to point, and ask if I'm seeing the same bullshit he's seeing. I confirm that what I see are 12 motherfucking Confederate soldiers, some with wiry gray beards, others cradling long muskets like children. A moment later, we realize they're not here for us, nor are they ghosts come to haul my grandmother's soul away. It might sound ridiculous, but part of being black is that you're game for any haunting the nation can dream of. It turns out they're Confederate war reenactors, performing a faux 21-gun salute over their lost co-worker's grave because it's been years, all of their faces polished down to nothing. Beyond the windows of the car, it is both 2020 and 1868. Grief slurs years together, yet while she lived, my grandmother never forgot my name once. The guilt of that cements in my stomach as I look out at the silent muskets and the socially distanced Confederates. I forget what year it is for a moment. Every story about grief is also a story about time, and time's arrow neither stands still nor reverses. So what year exactly is it is a question BoJack Horseman gives an incredible amount of weight to. It's a running question of mostly solid, but at times cluttered first season, wherein BoJack meets Diane Wynn, and we're going to skip over this part. I was in my grandmother's life, the shortest of anyone she could still remember. She never was lucid enough to ask me, "What are you doing in Mississippi?" And I was never old enough to tell her I came looking for a long history of disappearing. When she was most biting towards my father, I resented that she remembered to be kind to me, but not the boy she raised, not the child she locked outside when the racist children chased him home from school so that he would learn what she knew. The world is fight or sink and nothing else. I didn't know how to hold that fear, that one day her same fever could pull my father under, but the people I love most, myself included, could one day forget me but still walk the earth. What's a ghost in the face of that? What's 12 ghosts when you have generations to choose from? Cool. We're going to close on... All right, cool. We're going to do two more. One quick one and one short one. I'm always like acting like the ball, like it's gonna fall out of my hands. But if it fell out of my hands, it would still just be a book. Okay, this is back. We're back in the Jordan Peele essay now. At this point, all I really knew about COVID was that Rudy Gobert had it, and the man they made president seemed confident it would blow over in a couple of days. which of course meant it was a lie. It meant our enemy was as wide as the sky. It meant there was no negotiating with what wishes you dead. It was March and whole cities worth of doors shut. It was March and the whole block went silent. It was March and it would end in 2 weeks. It was March and niggas got in fistfights over months worth of toilet paper. It was March and the tragedy already felt like it had stretched for years. It was March and every mouth disappeared. It was March and nobody knew the rules. It was March and it sort of stayed March forever. In April, nobody knew what to wear to the apocalypse. The grass grew wild where we couldn't stand, and if you saw someone on the street, you kind of awkwardly leapt 6 feet away from them. In April, COVID was the worst group project we ever failed, the worst game of freeze tag ever. In April, I lost my job, and any superlatives that may have once associated with me died on the vine. In May, everyone, and I mean everyone, was really into Tiger King. In May, the country has an appetite for spectacle. In May, the rich are their own country. In May, hardly anyone's my president these days. In May, anti-vaxxers licked locked doors in protest. In May, everyone was catching up on The Sopranos and taking master classes for what they do in the New World. It was May, and the difference between horror and comedy is the music. It was May, and there had never been so much silence. It was May, and George Floyd was murdered by the police on a street corner in Minneapolis, and the trick was the New World was the old world all along. The thing about the alien invasion narrative is that it often counts on the idea that in the face of an existential threat to global society, we will all go full Independence Day and rally towards a big win over the invaders. But then the pandemic came along, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Niggas was coming to blows over toilet paper, and whether germs were even a real thing. It was, and still is, the world in which my phone was flooded with snippets of a video of a man's last breaths, of George Floyd's last breaths. I have never made myself watch the video, and I never will. I have seen enough videos of the last minutes of a man slowly being murdered by an officer who knew him and who would have been granted the authority to kill him even if he didn't, to know that there is no negotiating with what wishes you dead. Okay, this is gonna be the final one. But before I get into that, I just want to say, free Palestine, fuck Israel. So this is the final essay in the book. Takes place in Greenville, while we are looking for just any record of my great grandfather from the town that he fled once. I've got cotton and gold on my mind. The first piece of art I ever owned is of cotton, painted by my sister's hand. For all the years I lived in Mississippi, this was the first face I saw in the morning, often the last face I saw at night. In the portrait, Cotton Crown, a black woman has that 1,000-mile stare that makes her everyone's auntie. The crosshatches darkening her face, every brushstroke in her face is a small parade of birds. Along her left cheek, a long scar twists out from her lower jaw, curling brown as wilting ivy. The scar blooms upwards until it becomes 10 leaves cradling a bowl of cotton. From the cotton, a crown. From the face, a sonata. I arrive in Greenville with the bass knocking, thinking of what it means to knit a crown from what was once sought to destroy you. Because it's the first time I've said it, and really meant it. I intend to survive Greenville. None of the library records have anything that I'm looking for. The sun is dragging lower in the sky now, and I'm starting to feel the desperation of the moment. I've made so much of wondering what I would do if I came all this way for evidence that, and if not burned, lost, and if not lost, then what? The thoughts are swelling now, a whole hive of my failures, when Noel comes and says that he looked up the hours for a nearby historical society. They aren't supposed to be open, but we have nothing left to lose. We trek under the sun, bleary gold cutting against our lengthening shadows. To my surprise, after ringing the doorbell, Getting no answer, we hear the door crack open. The dude who runs the place holds his thin blue medical mask over his face with one hand and asks what we're looking for. You know by now the story I told him. Truest story I know about a man threatened with wings. I want to show you the one I've never told but always considered. My answer to that question I get all the time, polished like a stone. What am I doing in Mississippi? I came to Mississippi looking for a man swallowed in the drawl of June. He passed for white, and this was his profession. I came looking for a long history of disappearing. This is the story of my great-grandfather, my grandmother's father, and in Greenville, he once sold lies and allegedly faulty medical equipment. I'm what happens to the body when the hustle goes bad. A whole town, your town, where just the pitifully few men it takes to seed a mob marched in and said, that ain't no white man, and there was nothing to deny, nowhere to hide but anywhere else. A trickle of sweat surrenders its way down my face. I can hardly be honest for all this June. Far as I see it, this whole town bent around a question. I'm related to that question. It's a question of how we save ourselves. But I want to find him, that man who wasn't white, but every photo named him moonlit. And that day, I imagine he rose, not like a man, but a promise. His return already blooming, a reverse migration that I've given my name 3 generations between then and now, between feather and mercy. But I want you to hear me here. What if he did not flee, but spared everything the heat glazed in Greenville? What if the mercy was always his? What if I come from a long line of wings, and every time I speak his name in this town, Albert Leland, the light flinches with memory? Because Mississippi remembers, because we have good cause to remember what you got good cause to forget. Maybe escape was always the wrong word for an unfurling of wings. I want to tell him this story. One I can't stop seeing, about what comes when you threaten a man with what he already was. How Albert Leland's wings unsheathed and already shined tar black, as if they had been waiting for this threat since the floods. And as I imagine it, none of the men in the mob noticed how the light on his bald spot briefly made Albert Leland every phase of the moon before he rose. All his rage flowered like lightning within a cloud, and looked to the coast where his daughter once took uneasy steps towards a home that would never be home again, where my grandmother touched her hand to the crest of a wave and laughed, the last laugh she'd ever unbraid in Mississippi. Is there a history that can survive this? Is this a history I can survive? What kind of ghost story am I all these miles from home? What comes when you threaten a man with what he already was? Some call it escape, some call it obedience, and how am I different? Showing up 3 generations late, obeying this old threat with my new face, a lineage I almost lacked, me and all my sorry light. In the greedy swelter of June, outside the Greenville Historical Society and before the silvered curl of the curator, I'm a tradition. I'm a boy doing an impression of a man, doing an impression of a man, doing an impression of a man, each of them, each of us, trying desperately to not get killed by ourselves. I came from the smoke of a town named from the cure for smoke. I came all this way, afraid I have lived in vain, but in the calm light, I'm alive and forgiveless. I tell him I want my records. I want Albert Leland's name anywhere. Fuck it. I tell him aloud. I want to survive. I want our ghost story back.
Uh,